So let me just begin by extending a little bit more of the table set by answering the why we're here. So the Central Business District, the CBD, was first adopted in 2012, and in September it was renewed by the Mayor and Council for an additional 10 years. This spring, contemplating a February or March timeframe, the Mayor and Council will determine the future of that CBD, just as the council member just told us. They will contemplate its potential expansion, and if they decide to expand it, then what its future boundaries may be. And based on that, they will then determine how best to use that GPLET tool that he referenced, how best to utilize that tool and the process of that GPLET to accomplish what it is that the community wants for the CBD. Following the council's renewal of the CBD in September, they made a decision to undertake a very energetic outreach effort. You heard him mention that times are different and times are really different now. And so they've made a decision to really be energetic in seeking engagement by the community in providing input so that they can use that as the basis for their decision making. And that's what brings us here today. So that's the why. And now let me just address the how we hope to accomplish their mission of maximum community engagement in the process. So first, excuse me, we've got 7 virtual community convenings. It's a Zoomapalooza. We've got 7 community meetings. Today marks the 4th of 7. The last of them is the 23rd of January. A key component of each of the community convenings will be completion of a 9-question survey. This survey is really pretty important. It's critical because it will provide input, hopefully in large numbers, to the Mayor and Council. Beyond the community sessions, beyond the 7 Zoomapaloozas, the survey will also be available on the city's website in both English and Spanish, in PDF, so you can literally print it off and share it as broadly as you wish. Paper copies of that survey are also available through the ward offices, again, available in English and Spanish. And then finally, that survey is going to be published in the Tucson paper with an all-out call and plea for every resident to complete it. The goal simply is to encourage as many people as we can to complete the survey so the council has the benefit of hearing from as many people as possible. And on that topic, just as one call to action, we need your help. So please, to your friends, your colleagues, your neighbors, spread the word. In addition, tomorrow, because you're attending today, you'll receive an email from the city giving you an opportunity to share additional comments or questions that may come up for you as you reflect upon the discussion today. That email will also allow you to receive ongoing email updates from the city as we go through the entire process. And we invite you to join that and just sort of stay engaged through the entire journey. Finally, on that same website, the city is creating a master Q&A document. The thinking here is really straightforward. If one person expresses curiosity, let's have that curiosity benefit the entire community. And so any questions, any comments, anything that you submit into the city's website will be sort of summarized and thematic. A master sort of Q&A document will be prepared so that everyone can see and benefit from each other's curiosity. All of that, by the end of January, the Mayor and Council will review the results from first, all 7 community convenings, secondly, the survey, third, all of those questions and comments that have been received at the website, and then finally, they'll also receive results of an academic research study that they've commissioned, and all of that will be used to inform their discussion about the potential modification of those CBD boundaries and the GPLET process. Based on that discussion and any consensus direction that emerges, by the end of February, the thought would be that staff would then prepare a modified CBD boundary map and a GPLET application and policy for consideration by the Mayor and Council. And that consideration we contemplate could happen possibly in March. So that's sort of the why we're doing all of this, the how we've sort of structured it all. So now let's come to today. We've got 90 minutes, now 82 minutes. We've got 4 goals for the time that we're going to spend together. First, it feels quite important to sort of level set and have a shared understanding of what we're talking about. So we're going to do that. 2, we've got a couple of very short activities to discover what you want, to get curious about your vision for the community's future and get a little insight from you about the challenges that you feel are going to be ones that we will have to manage to get there. Third, we want to focus on the CBD and the GPLET and capture your thoughts, perspectives, desires, priorities, and even fears by completing that 9-question survey together. And then finally, we'll have an open discussion at the end to ensure that we capture any of your ideas and solutions. So that's sort of how the 90 minutes is going to be constructed. I'm going to just ask for a sort of a simple pinky promise, call it agreements that we can all sort of pledge to each other. First, just utilize vigor and brevity in sharing your ideas, because there's a lot of us and we want to hear from as many as we can. So vigor and brevity are the name of the game. Please mute if not speaking, because that always creates kerfuffle in Zoom. And if you would like to speak, just use that raised hand feature in Zoom, and we're going to try to be conscientious about making sure we see you. Finally, the chat function. For those of you relatively new to Zoom, down at the bottom, there's a little bubble, that's chat. Anything that you put into the chat, we're watching it pretty carefully, and the questions that emerge, the staff will attempt to do their best to answer in real time. And then of course, those will be summarized, and then you will then see them in that master Q&A document that will be accessible through the website as well. So feel free to use the chat. Finally, we've got one kind of special and innovative feature, and it's something, frankly, I've never seen in any community engagement effort that any municipalities have undertaken, and that is the inclusion of 3 individuals that we're referring to as bridge builders. And their role is to do exactly that, to build bridges of engagement throughout the entire process. The cool part is all 3 of these people are rooted in the community. They've got their longtime residents, and they're also well-versed in the topics at hand, which makes them uniquely qualified to help ensure the most diverse and widespread participation through the entire process. They will assist with the preparation of the recommendations that are ultimately going to be made to the mayor and the council. So I'd like each of our 3 bridge builders to quickly just say hello and just introduce themselves so that we know who you are. So Shay, I think I saw you.
Hi, yes, my name is Sharia Jimenez. I am a small business owner with Cuadro Design. I am a 5th generation Tucsonan, so my family's been here for a really long time. I'm just happy to be here. Again, I'm mostly here to listen and again to help facilitate conversation, probe further, you know, those sorts of things.
Thank you for building bridges. Who'd like to go next?
I can go next. Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry, Corky.
No, go for it.
Thank you for the invitation. My role is just, you know, the same as Shay. I'm here to listen. We will be attending the 7 meetings. My background is in micro lending, helping small businesses. I am the director for the Women's Business Center, and we help small businesses grow, sustain, expand. So I don't work for the city or the county. I'm here to listen and make recommendations. So I'm very interested in hearing what recommendation the participants have to say.
Thank you, Frankie. And Corky.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Corky Poster. I'm an architect and planner, and I've worked in Tucson in community development planning and affordable housing for, I'm embarrassed to say, about 47 years. I've worked in every neighborhood from the Elvira neighborhood on the very south edge of Tucson all the way up to Flowing Wells and pretty much most of the center city neighborhoods in between. I know a lot about affordable housing, built about 4,700 units of affordable housing over those many years, and also involved in the choice neighborhoods planning process north of downtown. So I'm really pleased to be working with Sharia and Frankie, and we'll be preparing an independent set of recommendations to the mayor and council. So we're listening carefully and hoping to hear good suggestions from everyone on the call. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Welcome all 3 of you. So let's get busy with today's agenda. So the first thing I mentioned was that it's important for us to have a shared understanding of the topic at hand so that we can have a meaningful conversation, right? So get that done. We've got 2 speakers who are going to walk us through some of the background on the Central Business District, defining what it is, and what's been happening there up until this point. So to do that, we've got Barbara Coffey, who is Director of Economic Initiatives, and Corin Manning, Planning Administrator at Planning and Development Services. So Barbara, take it, please.
All right, thank you very much, Poonam, and also Councilman Kozacek for hosting tonight. This is, of course, an important conversation, and really just applaud everyone for attending and the kind of engagement that we've had so far. It's been phenomenal. So let's talk about the Central Business District. You can see on the map in front of you in red, the shaded area is the current existing Central Business District. And it is created in accordance with state statutes. Just a couple things to note. And again, Councilman said it well, that there's certain geographical requirements, but it's also an area that cannot be more than 2.5% of the total land area of the city. And again, was adopted back in 2012, but renewed as recently as September. I did want to point out that as we go through this reconsideration process and then look at the future of the district, we are also working in tandem with some research and analysis going on. We have Dr. Gary Paiva with the University of Arizona Kaplan School, who is doing a research and analysis of the current GPLET projects and the impacts that they may have or have had or may have on the community. And so that is going on. And again, that information gathered in that process, along with what we do here in the community meetings, will be utilized together to form those recommendations and discussion items with the mayor and council in the weeks to come. So again, when we talk about the Central Business District, we're looking at an area that also by state statute allows the opportunity to utilize the tool that Councilman referred to, the Government Property Lease Excise Tax, or GPLET as we like to call it. It is utilized to facilitate or attract reinvestment into an area. And what it requires is that properties developed then within that area must increase in value by at least 100% assessed valuation. So that gives you some idea. The 23 projects that have been approved since 2013, just a few facts and figures on those. Again, that GPLET offers the 8-year tax abatement inside the Central Business District. The value of the properties before they were developed, of all of those 23 combined, just over $40 million. In the economic impact analysis that we do with each of those, we see a total of estimated post-GPLET value of over $220 million. And when we looked back in 2020, just last year, when we reported out to council and looked at the current properties on the tax rolls, we saw that all of those, except for the 6 projects not yet completed in terms of construction, already valued at about $90 million and more. Now, all but 5 have received certificate of occupancy. So again, some still under construction. All but 3 have been developed by local entities or local development firms. And there is just one outlier so far, not quite entering its 4th year in the abatement period, but it's at 93% of an increase in assessed value. So it's tracking towards 100%. When we look at the current program and the projects that have been approved, here's what they've done. So 8 of those have converted parking lots into new development. 5 have activated vacant buildings. 5 of those 23 projects have seen rehabilitation or preservation of historic buildings. 1 has been developed on a vacant lot, and none of the projects were involved in any kind of development that replaced single-family homes. So here's a few pictures just to give you a sense of some of these that you may be very familiar with. So this is the parking lot that then became the Trinity Office project, and quite a sustainable office environment that is now leasing, just opened last year. This, you might remember, is a former Motel 6 property that, again, in the middle of a pandemic, a new boutique hotel we call the Tucson Hotel opened up. It was July 1 last year when this project was opened to the public. We see this picture reminding us of what was a historic building that, if it dates back to about 1952, the first Baptist church school was operated here, and it quickly became the headquarters for the Mr. Car Wash operations in Tucson. And so again, another example of an eyesore becoming an icon for the city. And speaking of icons, this one is our tallest building in Tucson, sitting downtown. And if you notice on the hard corner, there was some open space there for future development, where again, last year, we saw the opening of the Rendezvous, about 100 units for apartments. And that came online and created a very unique opportunity to add residential in the heart of downtown to again continue the work in terms of vibrancy, adding that 24/7 population to help sustain those small businesses that surround it. But I want to say all that in context with, it's that may be some of the more positive outcomes, but doesn't come without its challenges, and it doesn't come without its heartache. And I want to say that, what's been prevalent in this community conversation is just that there are challenges with, for example, the language and state statutes regarding the slum and blight definition and the requirements for that in creation of the CBD. That is a very offensive term. It's not a happy thought to have an area of your community have that designation. It also is something I want you to be aware that when we look at the GPLEP program, it is one program. It's one tool in terms of an incentive to attract reinvestment. It alone does not create all the problems, nor does it solve all the issues. So again, we're looking at that in context with many other things that are happening in the area. And then finally, the affordable housing, that Corky talks about and is certainly an expert in, and I know he'll touch on that more later, is that there are nuances around how, what kinds of projects can utilize the GPLET. And sometimes, especially in the affordable housing projects that utilize the low-income housing tax credits and other sources, they may not always be able to use both tools. And so if you think about projects like the Marist or West Point Apartments, you get a sense of how other things must come to bear. So with that, I want to turn it over to my partner in planning and development, Corinne Manning, so that she can share a little bit about what other tools that have been at work in the Central Business District to help create some of these outcomes. Corinne?
Great, thank you, Barbara. And give me a second to share my screen.
K-O-R-E-N, Manning.
Yes, Corinne Manning. I'm with the City of Tucson Planning and Development Services and work on long-range planning efforts for the city, including downtown development projects. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
You can, okay, great. So I just want to add a little bit to what Barbara has shared about the Central Business District and how it has supported infill development in our downtown, and really want to highlight that the Central Business District and the GPLET are really just one tool to support infill development, and really is not meant to work in isolation. It works hand in hand with other tools that the city has put in place to encourage more sustainable infill development. Some of those other tools are transportation investments. So namely our investment in the streetcar that came about as a result of years of advocacy by many members of our community who wanted to see more transit options in Tucson. At the time that plans were put in place for that streetcar, our community did a lot of planning and a lot of thinking about how to capitalize on that investment and how to use that streetcar to drive more infill development in our downtown and really bring about kind of a restoration of new businesses, housing in our downtown area. So those other tools that are meant to complement that transportation investment are zoning regulations. Zoning essentially controls what can be built where and really plays a strong role in shaping future development. One of the primary zoning tools that we have for our downtown area is the Infill Incentive District. So I'm going to touch on that just briefly. And then these tools are meant to be paired with the financial incentives that are provided by the GPLET, but also through other means in Tucson, such as Rio Nuevo. So these three elements really work together to support more sustainable infill development in our downtown. And I want to highlight that zoning kind of provides the envelope or the form of development that can be built, while the GPLET provides the financial incentives to make those projects possible. So I mentioned the Infill Incentive District is one of our strongest tools. to shape development downtown, it's often used by projects that are also using a GPLET. Many projects use both of these tools, but they do have distinct roles in the project. Again, the Infill Incentive District controls the form, so it allows for more pedestrian, transit-oriented development that we want to see downtown and allows mixed-use development. While again, the GPLET provides the financing. So projects in the IID also have to meet design standards. That's really one of its primary purposes, is to ensure that we get really good quality development in our downtown areas, and requires that projects follow historic preservation guidelines to preserve our historic resources. This tool has evolved over time. There was kind of some earlier iterations of this tool. It was first established by Mayor and Council in 2010. Some of the changes we've seen over time are changes around student housing. So the earlier regulations that were sort of a precursor to the IID that we have today allowed this tool to be used by student housing projects. That's what enabled projects like the Junction and the District. Then the IID went through a lot of changes after that, after community conversations about whether this was really meeting the goals and intention of this tool. So along with stronger design guidelines, the IID was changed so that student housing projects can no longer use this tool except by special exception by Mayor and Council. Since that was put in place, no student housing projects have requested to use the IID. So again, these tools are meant to evolve with time as the needs and goals of our community change. And that's exactly why we're here today, is to talk about what modifications can be made to our central business district to make sure it's meeting today's needs. Just want to share a map of the downtown infill incentive district. This map is very similar to the shape of the central business district, again, because these tools are meant to work together in many cases. This does include distinct sub areas that have their own design guidelines, so they can be very tailored to the local area. As you can see, the map covers downtown and also extends along several commercial corridors. What's not included in the downtown infill incentive district is the core parts of residential neighborhoods. It's really not designed to change the form of those neighborhoods, but really to spur development along the streetcar and along our commercial corridors. The infill incentive district has been used by over 40 projects since it was established, and has brought over 1,500 housing units to this area, including over 500 units of senior and affordable housing and over 500,000 square feet of commercial space, which includes new offices, retail, hotels, new jobs and businesses to the area. I do want to point out that more than half of the projects that have used the IID are minor projects, which are usually smaller local businesses that want to expand their footprint in downtown, and this allows them to do that. Some examples include Cirrus Visual, Sand Reckoner, Time Market, Cresta Coffee. A lot of small businesses in the downtown area have taken advantage of this. So here's an example of one of our prime intersections in downtown, Stone and Broadway. This is 2011, so now 10 years ago. Prior to the infill incentive district and the streetcar, we saw surface parking on one corner. Another corner had some offices that were starting to become out of date and low-rise commercial use. After these sites have gone through a design review process with the infill incentive district, we now see new development on both corners. So on the left is the Westerner and West Point Apartments, which includes new affordable housing for seniors. That was built as ground up construction. And then next to it is a building that has been adaptively reused. That was a historic building that's now been rehabbed and is home to new offices. You can see it's right along the streetcar, so very easy for people to get to work, to these apartments if they live there, etc. And then on the right, we see 10 West Broadway. That's a mixed use development, so includes 40 apartments and then ground floor medical offices. So very transit oriented development with the streetcar, and has helped bring a pedestrian vitality to downtown. This is an example of a smaller business development. Like I mentioned, this is Cirrus Visual on North Stone. It was an auto use that sat vacant for some years. And then through the IID process was able to be renovated and adaptively reused, converted to offices for Cirrus Visual. This allowed this business to expand their footprint and relocate within the downtown area. So those are just a couple examples. The IID is still evolving. When it was last renewed by Mayor and Council in 2019, there was a lot of discussion about housing needs in the downtown area and beyond, and how well the IID is meeting those needs. At that time, Mayor and Council requested that the city conduct a housing study to get more information about our current housing market and how the IID can continue to evolve. And that's underway right now and has already yielded a lot of great data and will continue to inform our housing policy going forward. So this tool, like the CBD, is also evolving. Thank you. Back
Oh,
to
there
you.
it is. There was the thank you. Wasn't sure if that was punctuated. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Corin. Lots of great questions that are happening in the chat. Keep them going. And now it's time for you to do some work. For the next couple of questions, I'm going to ask you to place your answer in the chat. So if you don't have your chat open, please do it by going down to the bottom. And I want to zoom out just a little bit. And here's the first question. Think now about Tucson in 2030. We are together on January the 13th, 2021. So jump a year, like a decade ahead, roughly, and think about that community, your community, and what it'll look like then. And in one word, just a single word, please share the adjective that you want to claim as a description of Tucson in 2030. Or asking it a different way, what will be true about our community a decade from now? What do you want to make sure is true about our community? What promise do you want to make and deliver to the community? What do you want our community to be? So Jasmine Simmons, I'd love to just get a little bit more from you on what it means. What do you mean when you say unique?
Well, currently when I drive through downtown, which, you know, you all say is thriving and wonderful, I see every other town in America. I see most of our historic, the beauty that was our downtown gone away, and now all the buildings look alike, and they look like every other building in every other town in America. I love that Tucson used to be unique. We still have little pockets here and there, but it's kind of been a domino effect with developers in those areas too. And I would like to see our community remain unique and beautiful and community oriented. And also I have a question. You say that most of these developments that get G-plets are local developers. Like, how are you kind of basing that? Because I can think of quite a few that are not local.
So Jasmine, can I ask you if we put a Post-it note on that, and I promise to come back to it?
Oh yeah, of course.
Trust me? Okay, thank you. So Michael, I don't want to mispronounce this. Chihak? You said preserved, sir. So I just want to, with vigor and brevity, share with us what preserved means.
Similar to what Jasmine was just saying, a lot of the development has made us look like any other city.
Okay.
Just these big boxes that don't have any character that ties them really to what Tucson is. On the slideshow, you showed the Trinity next door to the Thai market. You know, you talk about blight. I mean, with all due respect to Rob Paulus, that was plunked down in the middle of a historic neighborhood, and it doesn't look like any of the buildings around it.
Okay, thank you. Jessica Sampson, you used the word integrated. Can you share with us what you mean by that?
You're muted, Jessica.
Since what happened recently at the Capitol, I realized how much we have to be integrated by race, culture, religion, and class and income levels in order to avoid creation of racism, which we saw the other day.
Got it. Okay, thank you. And then Rory, Junman, you said progressing. Can you give us a sense of what you mean by that?
Yeah, sure. I think our community and every community needs to keep moving forward, keep growing, keep jobs. We need to do it in a way that's unique to us, that maintains our character. But I think if we're not mindful of how we grow in a positive way, then we risk not growing. We risk not having those jobs, and development's a big part of that. So,
okay. So I think, so what you see here is a summary of the words, right? The larger the word, the more frequently it was said. And I think what just revealed was the complexity around this kind of stuff, right? There are lots of trade-offs. These are multi-layered, multi-dimensional kinds of conversations. So this is a beautiful place. Look at the place that you described. It's going to be vibrant, sustainable, equitable, diverse, and you can see it. So thank you for that. Now, it is not easy to get to the places that we want to get to. And so at some point, we need to sort of, as a community, just acknowledge and be open about the challenges that are get in the way. So back to the chat, still with only one word as an answer. Here's the question. What do you think is going to be the single biggest challenge that we will face and have to overcome in order to achieve the amazing vision that you just articulated? It's going to get in our way. What do we need to muddle and manage through? So several of you said greed. So I'm going to ask one of you to just elaborate a little bit more exactly what you mean. Does no one, I mean, what does that mean? So let me ask Paul Stapleton Smith, who I think is the first one to say.
Well, I hate to be first, but the truth is that when we're talking about tax giveaways, the history of our country and our state and our city and our county is that greedy corporations are first in line for tax giveaways. And the truth is that it is always in the realm of sustainable development and putting community first. It's the elephant in the room. It always is. And I don't mean to sound adversarial or mean-spirited.
I got it. So let me just gently ask a question about that one. So the tax giveaway, so the GPLET's a tool, right? And so it's not like there's a pot of money and then money is given. It's an incentive, an abatement on taxes for a building that theoretically otherwise wouldn't be built. So is there a scenario under which we can balance, if we manage through this stuff with, often some really difficult conversations, is it possible to allow other people to have a win if there's a trade-off that allows some balanced set of benefits? Is that possible? So I see Lawrence, your hand is up. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Larry Lucero. Lawrence is my,
Oh.
name. Well, everybody knows
Hi,
this.
Larry. Hi, Larry.
Thank you. I think it's, with all due respect to Paul and I are very active in the workforce development arena, and but I think it's transparency. It's a system that hasn't allowed itself to be as transparent as it should be in terms of allowing the public to be familiar with the give and take of the tool that allows for an investment to occur. That's as politely as I can say it, perhaps.
Yeah, and so here's the summary, right? So the single biggest word in here is greed. And this is going to require some additional conversation, because if I cut and run from the conversation, we don't go anywhere in the discussion. And if we don't go anywhere in the discussion, then solutions that benefit multiple groups aren't going to be possible because we're fighting one against the other, right? And so I think for just these last two questions, the point was it's really important to sort of have a North Star, like what can we, will we, dare we aspire to? And then let's also be sort of eyes wide open and hands and hearts open to say, let's stay in it and keep communicating until we can find ways to overcome the challenges that we all agree are real challenges, right? So thank you for that. Okay, now let's get.
Sorry, can I touch on one thing about the greed aspect? So I'm Ravi. I'm an applicant for the G-Plat, actually, for my business. I think it's unfair to mention greed completely, that all G-Plats are just all about greed per se. My parents have saved for 25 years to build enough money to invest in their second property. And it's not about greed because our property that I'm applying for the G-Plat, it's completely dilapidated. I mean, sorry, I can't say that word, but the property is run down. Drugs, prostitution, all types of terrible, terrible things. We would never invest as much as we are going to if we didn't have the G-Plat. And just because, I mean, we would probably make more money running it as a crappy hotel, to be honest, than to actually take the risk, put all our life savings into this property and hope that it works, right? Because business is a risk. So I just want to mention that I think there's a big differentiating factor that we should always keep in mind. I consider myself as a small business owner. There's some of the G-Plats are like big business developers and groups and stuff like that. So even though I'm applying for the G-Plat as a small business, there's a huge gap between small business owners and the big developers.
Great. Thank you, Ravi. Thank you for thanks for your commitment to the community and thanks for sharing your perspective. Amanda Miranda, I don't know, I see your hand up.
Yes, yeah, thank you, Ravi, for bringing that up. And I think one of the things that really this shines a light on too is that there's multiple things going on, including that the way that the city allows development to occur in other parts of the community also matters and dictates how expensive it is to develop in downtown parcels. Because yeah, if it's really cheap to build on a greenfield project out, in the peripheries of town, then sure, that's where developers are going to go. It makes perfect economic sense versus rehabbing or revitalizing a particular parcel. But none of that, like that greenfield development is not an infill project. And so I think shifting the focus and taking away the market in cheaper parcels is, one of those solutions that you can find that's not also giving, the people, I understood your distinction and I appreciated the distinction from the G-Plat being taking away money from a pot. I think that's really important. But I think the community, when you see persistent budget constraints by the community, in the city and lack of funding for community housing and investment in people, that starts to really sting, especially so I think that focusing on other strategies that are causing some of the market effects that we see as to why it's more financially viable to invest in and why projects are not viable without a G-Plat perhaps, is important. But I think the other key piece, and I'm really glad that Gary Pivo is doing this study, but the other piece of this is the community hasn't seen the impact. It hasn't been evaluated and it hasn't been measured. And then also there's a really clear verification that these projects wouldn't go, without this tool. So we're taking the word of the developer and their lender saying that they won't get the funding for this, but there's no verification of that.
Okay.
And I think that creates a bit of a tension and concern.
Grateful for that. So I see a couple of hands up. I've got to keep us moving. I promise you will be heard. I got your names written down. We're going to turn to you, but I've got to get the survey going. So let's go to that. This is easier. You don't have to use your chat. We're going to now we're going to scroll through the survey question by question. There are 9 questions. We have a test question. Please put that up so you can all try it. You just simply will see that dialog box, pick your answer. When you've selected an answer, you'll see your red submit button light up, hit submit. And then we will very, very quickly, as soon as the majority of you have responded, we will see, okay, so who's not breathing? We don't have time to go into that right now, but please reconsider the decision not to breathe, please. So let's go to the second question, please. How long have you lived in Tucson? Yeah, the longevity of your community is just absolutely beautiful to witness. More than 30 years is the #1 response. If I take 10 or more years, that is going to be about 85% of those. And granted, is 71 of us in this conversation right now. So thank you for that. Next question, please. Do you live within the existing central business district? Yes, no, or I don't know. The majority of you do not, although almost a third of you do, or a little more than a quarter of you do. Thank you. The next question. So we're going to just go through the ones that are pretty self-explanatory quickly, and then there's a couple that we really want to stop and pick your brain about. What brings you to the CBD or to downtown Tucson? And pick as many as apply to you. Wow, lots of different reasons is the answer. Mostly about eating, mostly about restaurants and bars. Although while you're there, you're going to shop a little, take care of government work, generally be entertained, and enjoy murals, art, public spaces, and walkable areas. Super. Next question, please. Thinking about the streetcar now, what's the streetcar's influence on downtown Tucson be, in your opinion, from your perspective? Very positive and somewhat positive together are more than 3/4 of you. So that's a really good thing. Next question, please. So the city has identified affordable and workforce housing as a key priority. How do you feel about that priority as they've declared it? Wow. Okay. So, Councilman Kuzachek, this is great news for you. It means that you are focused on the thing that we want you most focused on.
This is Porky. I wanted to try to spend a little more time on this topic since it had such a wide amount of support, and really talk about a little bit of some of the complexity and get some diverse views about where we should head in terms of affordable housing. Let me just introduce that by saying there's essentially an institutional aspect of affordable housing, the low-income housing tax credit program. It's an important program because last time I looked, about 98% of new affordable housing construction comes through that program. But it's also a rental program exclusively, and it also, as was pointed out earlier, is structurally unable to use the GPLET for a variety of technical reasons. We have built 5 projects that I'm aware of in the CBD using that tax credit program, which is about 600 700 housing units. So that's been a really good plus to make sure that low-income people have a place to live in the downtown, but it is only rental. And it leaves out a whole variety of preservation of affordable housing, of affordable home ownership. And so I just wanted to open up the discussion and get some other views about how we might be able to increase and diversify the kinds of affordable housing that we can provide. I want to ask Amanda and Miranda to start us off. They had some pretty smart things in the chat earlier. So can I ask you to do that?
Sure. Yeah, I'll the two things I really highlighted in the chat were, one, some findings in the PCHIP plan, the draft plan that's been put forth by Housing Community Development. Check it out. It has a lot of interesting information, including the fact that I shared that 2,000 affordable housing units are needed in the next decade just to accommodate houseless folks in Tucson. And I just found that really striking, especially after being in some of these meetings and hearing Corky say that, you know, he's done 4,700 over, you know, what is the 40 decade, or not 40 decades, but a 40-year career. And, you know, we need that within a decade. So that really struck me. And then I think also the article that I shared is also interesting in that the focus that it highlights pretty early on that 60% of people who have lower or moderate incomes live in housing that is like 1 to 4 units rather than having high-rise type developments. And so but that's also not typically subsidized except through in federal housing programs, except through certain voucher programs, I believe. And that really just shows this gap of what we're building and what is needed in most cities. And granted, it is a national study, so it's not specific to Tucson, but thinking about our housing stock, we do have a lot of single family type homes. So I think just like having a conversation and thinking about what are we putting in downtown and building in the greater downtown region, because the CBD extends beyond this dense area, and thinking about what type of housing are we putting into place, and then what members of our communities are then able to access the perks of the streetcar and the perks of having local businesses that are, you know, flourishing in certain spots. So those are two things I highlighted, and I don't have a perfect solution, but just
those are two great ideas, and that's how they start. So Corky, I'm just noticing that Art, Ted, and Larry have been waiting a long time. So just is it on?
Please just unmute and chime in.
Yeah, gentlemen, it's on this topic. Chime in.
Yeah, I'm not in control of your muting, so go ahead.
This Art, you want me to go first?
Sure, Art. Good to see you. Yeah.
How are you? First of all, there's been a lot of misinformation just on this one phone call. Let me provide some facts for everybody on the phone call here. I heard from one speaker that there's no data. That's not accurate. I heard from another speaker that it's big developers, out-of-town developers that are making all the money. That's not factually true. The people that have done the G-Plat in this town, I've done 2 of them with my partner. I've lived here 47 years. My partner was born here. He's 3rd generation here. We give back to community. Hulualoa's done one. Hulualoa has supported every art endeavor in Tucson, has given millions to the city. HSL had another one. HSL bought an old hotel out on South Palo Verde. They've converted it. They've given millions to the city. We would not develop those properties without G-Plat. They don't make any sense. Forget the lender. We were turned down by 8 lenders. 8 lenders. We wouldn't develop that. So right now you'd have 2 parking lots making about $6,000 in taxes. Starting next year, we're going to be paying $125,000 in taxes. So do you want $6,000 forever or $125,000 for 8 years to eternity? Those are facts. On 1 East Broadway, we have a minority woman-owned business that we started. We helped capitalize them with the G-Plat, with the money. That business is now doubling in size because of that. And lastly, the G-Plat and the CBD have almost zero to do with affordable housing, as Corky said. They're unrelated. You can support affordable housing as I do, but it's not in this form. And lastly, if you want affordable housing, as Corky said, I guarantee you this, it's a fact. If you want to talk about facts, The people that do the LifeTech housing, lower income affordable housing, are on a national scale. They get wealthy doing this. If you don't want these people to be wealthy and you don't want to be out of town, that's not what you support. They're not going to give money back to Tucson, and they're going to get wealthy doing this. So if that bothers you, don't support it.
Great, thank you. Ted?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to add a little bit of context to this discussion. And I'd like everybody to think about what downtown was like 10 years ago before the G-Plat, and then look at what it's like today. And there are really two things that have made downtown go. And I've represented Art, I've represented some of the developers he's talked about, and I can attest the fact that they would not have gone in and developed in downtown without this economic incentive. But we've gone from a very sleepy downtown. It had provided very little tax base. There were no restaurants to speak of, very little entertainment venues, to a very vibrant area. And one of the big reasons is the G-Plat. So my point is that this is not a zero-sum game. This economic incentive is not taking money out of anybody's pocket. Rather, what it's doing is it's making development possible so that we can have the restaurants, so we can have the entertainment venues, and we can increase the tax base so the city has some money that it can use for things like affordable housing. So we really can't look at this like a zero-sum game, or we're just going to be in circular firing squad. We need to work together and come up with a downtown where everybody benefits. And this is one piece of that puzzle. So I just wanted to say that to get it out there. And I understand all the concerns people have. Affordable housing is definitely a concern, but like Art said, a lot of the people that have been involved in development of downtown have also been very committed to affordable housing and to benefiting the homeless and low income populations of this city and this county.
Joe, did you have anything to add to that? You've had a lot of comments in the chat.
Well, not necessarily specifically about the affordable part of it. I think we've talked about that and made some great points. I put my hand up when Ravi was speaking the first time, and I'm a pretty outspoken opponent of G-Plats in the CBD, and even I will acknowledge there have been some good projects that have gone through this. If we look at something like Brother John's Barbecue, like that's a place, it was a nightclub. They turned it into a barbecue joint. The G-Plat was for $286,000, I think. And it was important in getting that local business up and running. And we love that. But one of the things is we've given away $44 million in property tax revenue for these projects. That's 153 of those Brother John's Barbecue G-Plats. And it hasn't gone to 153 places. When you look at the Cadence, Marriott, Union, Opus, and Hyatt, just the 5 biggest ones, that's 58% of the giveaways right there. We can say that they've mostly gone to small businesses and mostly small developers, but if all the money is going to the big ones, this was any other government program and we said 58% of it is going to who it's not designed to go to, there would be outrage, and rightfully so. And I think the fact that we're seeing that happen in the G-Plat program, and we're continuing the CBD, and the questions on our survey are not about, do you want to see the CBD expanded? Do you want to see it contracted? That they're way more abstract than that. I think these are problems. And that's why I raised my hand.
Could I respond to that? I think we have to look at the overall picture. One of the early slides I saw on here was how much the values downtown have increased. And as the values increase, the taxes that those projects generate increase, and the value of the properties around those G-Plat projects increase. And I'll bet if you had a study of the total of value of downtown before G-Plat and after G-Plat, it would blow your mind how much it's increased. So again, this is not a zero-sum game. The G-Plat doesn't take 1 cent out of anybody's pocket. Those projects would not have been built. They would have remained in the state that they were, and they weren't generating any property taxes at that point anyway. So it's completely a misnomer to say that the G-Plat is taking money out of anybody's pocket.
Well, I'd like to chime in here and actually.
Poonam, do we want to move on or continue this?
Can I add one thing though to that? Because I think that there is a little bit of like, one, I think that we should clarify that I think most people that are here and pushing back against the G-Plat and CBD are not like anti-developer and are not anti-specific, like specific developments that were mentioned earlier per se. We're talking more largely about the tool and how it's used. And I think, you know, Ted, you really brought up some great points of like what can be like, how can this bubble up and like how this is adding value. But I think what we can point to is that when the city invests in like infrastructure like the streetcar, which in planning, one of the key reasons why communities do this and lay tracks, literally laying tracks rather than putting a bus line, is because it signals to real estate investors that this is a safe bet and that this is a place where the community is investing and therefore you should develop here. And so I think saying that just attributing the property value increase to the development of a G-Plat or, you know, use of a G-Plat is also misleading. And I think too that when you put down, when you
Amanda, sorry, I got to keep moving. So here's the point, right? We are here together because the point is to get input so that we can give it to the mayor and the council. That's exactly the point. It is not to make sure that everyone has the same conclusion or believes the same thing at the end of the conversation. It's not that. So I think what we're seeing is some rich surfacing of the dimensionality and the complexity of this set of issues. I now want to go to the next question though, please, because we've got 2 more questions. So here's the next question. In addition to affordable workforce housing, what other types of investment should be a key priority for the mayor and the council in the downtown area? And this one, I just want to make you aware, if you scroll, there's a few additional responses that are available to you. So it's really about how do you want the mayor and the council to focus? And then for those of you that have your hands up but have spoken, can you put them down? Otherwise, I'm going to high five you. Okay, so there's 3 that seem to just lunge up beyond the others. Renovation, reuse of existing buildings, number 1, closely behind public green spaces, and then safer streets and better connectivity. All right, then let's go to the last question, please. And we'll have discussion on this last question. It's a big one. What types of community benefits should accompany G-Plat assisted development projects in the CBD? What are the community benefits?
Oh, Poonam, we're on the.
Sorry. I got one ahead of myself.
That's all right.
I apologize. What areas around, so now you know what's coming. What areas around downtown should the city council, mayor and council focus on for investment? And Colette, I think you mentioned that there is now a none of the above option. That was some feedback we got. It is now changed. All right, well, it's Miracle Mile, the old 5, but not by a lot, like South 6th Avenue, 5 Points, close behind. Well, you'll see it's pretty diversely spread. And 11% of you among the 69 participants who are on this call said none of the above. Okay, the final question, please. And I already previewed it. Talk about ruining a surprise, sorry. What types of community benefits should accompany G-Plat assisted development projects in the CBD? from your perspective, what should the priorities be? Okay, number one, and I will tell you that this is the fourth meeting, and this has been the fourth time that the same thing has been number one, small and local business job creation. It matters immensely to all of you. And I think we're seeing some patterns now, like historic preservation, adaptive use, and then a spot-on a tie between environmental sustainability and increased attainable housing options. So let's focus if we can and try to get, Frankie, what do you think? We try to get some of the ideas that people have for small and local business job creation.
Yeah, and I think it's been the highest in all the previous meetings. So I would like to hear from the participants what kind of opportunities this tool should create for new small and local businesses. If I could just get some feedback from the participants, especially the ones that haven't participated in the past, that would be great.
I'm just going to go ahead because nobody's gone. It's Ravi again. I think as a small business owner, creating jobs is the best thing. I think that's what strives me actually to develop further is I want to create jobs. One side note is I don't understand the whole principle behind having, this whole higher wages kind of aspect, because I think all jobs are good jobs regardless. I mean, just a little perspective. When I just had a newborn baby daughter. When she turns 18, I'm gonna get her a fast food job. She's gonna have a fast food job. She's gonna have a retail job. Like, I want to have those experiences. And I kind of get a little bit quirked out when people say, oh, we should only have $100,000 paying jobs. That's not okay all the time. I think it's okay to have lower paying jobs for people, for experiences, for our kids, for our future generation to learn a little bit. So just one little side tidbit is I personally think that as long as we're creating jobs, I think that's fantastic as a community.
Okay, so may I ask you, and actually I'm glad you were the first one to speak, because did you have to pay a lot of fees to get the GPLET approved? And how many jobs did you create? Or are you creating?
I'm in the process. I had to spend $5,000 to do the evaluation. So a third party out of Phoenix that does the evaluation of how much impact we're going to have. With that, I mean, just basic numbers. Being a small business owner, it's very hard to increase your property value by 100%. It's not that easy. Just think about it. Like, if your property is worth, for example, $1 million, easy example I look at is you have to spend at least $1 million to increase that property value. That's not, for a small business owner, that's a lot of money, even for us. That's not easy pill to swallow. If things fail, then you lose everything that you owned. I've put other properties in collateral to get even the loan for something like this started, because none of the local banks wanted to lend. So just a little perspective.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Sheree. I was just going to chime in again. I think to just further expand on Frankie's question, I'm wondering if we have any, again, I think the definition of small business is also pretty broad, just like the definition for affordable housing can be pretty broad. So maybe I think we're specifically looking for in the room is hopefully a small business owner that hasn't, and one that maybe has one or two.
Oh, the magic of Zoom. She just froze up.
Small end, I would say.
Do we have anyone on who is a small business owner with less than 5 employees? Tom, you've been trying to get your hand up to say something.
It wasn't in response to that. I just had a comment regarding this, the importance of small business, but I'll wait for that other question to get answered.
Well, let's see if there's anyone on here. I don't see anyone. Anyone? All right, Tom, why don't you go?
Business owners, come on, this is our opportunity.
Yeah.
Recommend to the city. Early in the chat, I saw Cindy. He said small business friendly. Are you still with us, Cindy? Because I'd like to hear from you.
Yeah, business friendly. Yeah. Well, I thought your original question had something to do with, how does GPLET put, get more small businesses? Wasn't that what it was?
How do we use this tool to create opportunities for new, small, and local businesses? So
To small and local businesses. Yeah. I would caution, and this is just me, this is very new to me, and all these terms are buzzing around in my head, so forgive me if I'm coming from a naive perspective, but I think that you've got a tool, and the tool, does one type of thing, and GPLET, I think, basically says, let's develop downtown in a general basis, particularly, building development and infrastructure development, right? To put the weight of some more expectations on it over and above that, I think you gotta kind of set your expectations, say maybe GPLET's not the tool that should do that. It's maybe a secondary benefit that you're assuming is going to occur, but to make a direct connection is, basically what was done to begin with, So I think you have to go say GPLET was designed to do X. You give somebody a GPLET thing, whatever it is, like Robbie, for example, and you say, hey, Robbie, did GPLET do for you what it was supposed to do for you? And then if it was supposed to do something for the community, did GPLET do for you? Is it accomplishing what it was designed to do? I think there's other tools we can use to get small businesses up and running. I'm not sure that GPLET is the thing. Now, I don't understand it that well, but let's put the right tool to the right issue and not try to make one tool do everything, but, do what it was supposed to do efficiently. That's what I would suggest on that.
Thank you.
There's several in the chat that were grateful for what you just said, Cindy. Frankie, was there anyone else and I think Tom wanted to say something, right?
I just wanted to comment. I see a couple people have made some notes about local businesses and how they've been integrated into some of these projects. One came up as Kaylin Harwell, which is a local businesswoman that has opened up her spa with inside of the AC Marriott. And, obviously we know if the money is spent more locally, we're going to have more of an impact on our community. And since that's what we're trying to do, it's nice to see an impact, a direction given to make it an affordable and make it an opportunity and make it a priority for some of these developments to bring in the small businesses. I think that accomplishes a lot of the goals we're trying to do. The smaller businesses are going to help with the keeping the local feel versus that generic large corporation city that we don't want to be. We want to keep these local businesses. We have to give them an opportunity to compete for some of these nice spaces as they're coming about. It brings more people into the downtown area. And I think I've heard this a few times, it's not a zero-sum game. I think there's a balance between, the name brand that's going to drive someone downtown that might then shop next door at the local purveyor that no one would have ever heard of if they hadn't done that. So I'm just a fan of people that are taking the benefits that have been given to them and then spreading that out and making sure that our local businesses are benefited. And AC Marriott is a good example of that in multiple ways of how the patrons of that are now supporting the local businesses downtown. And, even within there, they held space for a local business owner.
Tom, you make a great point with the AC Marriott and the spa that is located there in their first floor retail space. I chair the Industrial Development Authority of the City of Tucson, and that is one of our clients that came to the Business Development Finance Corp and the IDA because they couldn't get financing, as others find that's a very difficult thing to do here in this community, for many small business folks who want to locate in a great location like the downtown area. So back to a comment that was triggered by Cindy's commentary, and that is we need a real good menu of other tools that we can bring to the cause to help the Ravis and the Amandas out there to realize their goals of establishing their business in a desirable place that they're seeking. So I think we need to do a better job of understanding all the tools that we have available and try to align those with the priorities that Mayor and Council have identified. I'm in full agreement with that. And we've from the IDA's perspective, we've really tried hard to work with that. Barbara has done a great job at the economic opportunities with the city of Tucson. So we work very closely, but we need to do more of that if that's helpful. I've got other items to talk about on affordable housing, but we can talk about that for another day.
Thank you. So Gary Brav, I see you so patiently with your hand up. Your arm must be exhausted. So let's hear from you, sir.
Thank you, Punim. Just listening to the conversation, affordable housing keeps coming up. Corky's done 4,000 or 5,000 units. I built 4,000 or 5,000 apartments and affordable homes, rental homes in Tucson. I've been in business 48 years. I have to tell you, there is no such thing as an affordable house anymore relative to workforce housing and the housing that you guys are talking about for working people. And the only way you're going to get that, and it's a very difficult problem, is all of the code requirements for homes that when you want to build those, the federal government weighs in and the city weighs in, and there's a lot of other jurisdictions that are involved in this. And if you try a pilot program, I'm sure you could develop some homes that are very attractive and livable that don't meet all of the government requirements that could make it affordable. There's lots of ways to deal with these issues, but you're limited in creativity because of codes.
So I want to just, Gary, thank you. So the key is solutions, right? The challenges are real. Only our imagination and collective innovation is going to plow us through them, right? And so those are the kinds of inputs, the solutions, the ideas. The one that seeds from you may not be the ultimate, but man, if that then triggers someone else to think of another component of it, we could actually start to do these things. So thank you for that. Shannon Riggs, I want to turn to you because I too feel like I've been looking at your hand up for an awfully long time. And oh, by the way, the survey is now done. The last section of the agenda was open discussion, which we're doing. So keep doing it. So Shannon Riggs, can we hear from you, please? Oh, Shannon. I see your hand up and you're muted.
There we go, sorry.
Hi,
actually Dee Dee, Shannon's partner, one of the owners of PopCycle and a member of HVAC. And I was just on the idea of keeping local. We can't do that if we don't have market rate. So there has to be some sort of rent controls in these developments, or otherwise it's just not feasible for a small business to move into these kinds of spaces.
Thank you.
And I would say that we successfully did that in the CBA that we did with the project on 4th. So I think that it is something that can happen, and I think that it's something that must happen if we are continuing down this road.
Okay, that's really valuable input. Thank you. Mike, I see your hand up.
Yes. Changing the subject a little bit. CDBG starts with the word community, and I'm wondering, at one time, at least in Cochise County, we discovered that CDBG were also applicable to community development. As we look forward to the next 10 years, they are going to be digital years. To what extent could we provide some funding for digital literacy among our population? And that goes from digital infrastructure, but primarily the training of the adult workforce to become more comfortable with building community that we are now seeing is going to be heavily digital oriented and limited. The thought of asking whether some funding could be applied to that type of community development.
Thank you, Mike. Talk about a proactive thinker. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. I see Lee Marshall's hand up.
Yeah, hi, thank you.
Hi.
I really kind of actually have a question for some of the developers that have spoken up. You know, I think you've mentioned a couple times, it sounds like, you know, the concern is that if a project doesn't pencil out, it's simply just not going to happen. And I understand that the GPLET is something, it's a tool that facilitates those sorts of projects happening. But we're talking about affordable housing, workforce housing, and I know that there are programs like LIHTC, other programs through HUD. You know, perhaps the city of Tucson starts doing something to facilitate affordable housing. But I guess my question is, why not do those kinds of developments? Why not take advantage of those incentives that would help build those things that, you know, lend to greater affordability? And I'm not trying to ask this in some like zinger get you kind of way, but really in terms of like trying to think about solutions here.
No, I heard the spirit of the intention, so thank you for the question. So I'm going to turn to Corky and Shay, who probably, who I know have got.
Let me start, and I'll be quick, and then I'll turn it over to Shay. I want to add on to what Larry and Cindy were saying, because it's a different perspective than I've heard before, which is that the real question is the CBD. GPLET is a tool within the CBD. We heard from Corin that the IID is another tool within the CBD. And so the challenge then is, how do we bring 6 or 7 or 8 other tools to the CBD that will allow us to do all the things that the CBD doesn't do very well? Excuse me, that the GPLET doesn't do very well. So I think if we kind of split it up that way, we'll have a lot better chance at progress than if we try to wonder how we can make the GPLET solve everyone's problem. Let me turn it over to Shay.
I'm sorry, my internet connectivity isn't the best right now. So Lee, could you please repeat the question specifically?
Basically asking the development community, like, what incentives do you need to build affordable housing? You know, what would turn you from using something like a GPLET to building affordable housing via LIHTC or whatever?
Well, I myself am not a large scale developer, so I can't speak to that end, but I guess I would speak. And what I'm curious about, I mentioned in the chat, again, as everyone's mentioning, I think we need a menu of incentives. So and a menu of incentives designed for different scales of development, as well as different income thresholds for people trying to develop or, you know, target audiences for the types of development, right? And I think that's where the disconnect is maybe, because I think big business will always be a reality for America, you know, but how do we balance big business with small business, right? And how do we make sure that, again, we have enough tools? So I'm really encouraged by the ADU ordinance that was recently passed. If people are interested in small scale development, a lot of us in the development community are working towards, you know, trying to strengthen our, because again, as Miranda's mentioning, we just don't have enough housing stock, right? We need to cultivate our local contractors to be able to do and execute these projects, right, at a small scale, and provide that missing middle housing, as we call it, right? So I think, again, I think there's a lot of efforts that people are recognizing. We have these lacks, we have these needs, you know, how do we come together and make sure we put policies in place to support these needs, and again, recognize maybe we need other tools to address this wide range, right, of scale, from and income, right? Because it's both, and we need to hopefully be able to do it all.
Well, yeah. Every community in the country, just to level set from it, is experiencing the same things, right? Every city has got exactly the same complicated Rubik's Cube to try to solve, and no one's got a solution. So to be clear, so the best that we can try to do is the best that we can do. And I think the key for me, one of the major themes coming out of today has been the clarity in this discussion around let's be clear and level set expectations about what a tool is designed to do, and not then get confused or over expect a tool to deliver. And then let's build an array of tools, it sounds like, an inventory of tools to accomplish the different kinds of things. So that was great. So I want to hear we've got just a few more minutes left, but I really want to hear from people we haven't heard from. Those of you that are like feeling a bit overwhelmed because everyone sounds so smart in their degree of knowledge and expertise on this set of topics. But here's the thing, is that you are a resident and you care enough to commit 90 minutes to talk about it. And we absolutely want to hear from you. So.
Yeah, I'll speak if I may.
Please. So first tell us who you are. So are you, sorry, I don't mean your life story, but do you live in the Central Business District? Do you work in there?
No, I work in the Central Business District, yeah.
Okay.
So.
And you're a resident that cares. So tell us what you're thinking there, Gregory, please.
Yeah, I just see a lot of great opportunities, a lot of great things as far as developing with Tucson in the local and in the downtown area specifically, even over the last 5 to 6 years, really, which has been tremendous. I definitely love seeing the change and the growth. It's definitely been helpful. And yeah, you know, we've talked heavily about development in such a way for residential and having more people come down with affordable homes and residency in the downtown area. And I mean, I can only speak to where I'm originally from, is Colorado, and we went through this, Colorado Springs, and we went through the same struggles in that capacity 15, 20 years ago. So, I mean, I feel that it'll come. I feel that there's a lot of diverse programs that are out there, from my understanding, to foster and grow the downtown culture and make sure that businesses and organizations are staying local in Tucson and keeping the funding. I just feel that trajectory just needs to be some kind of avenue for business to come in to see that, and we retaining those businesses, retaining those services, and growing them locally here and building that out. But that's just my opinion. That I don't have any data on it or anything like that. Just my opinion.
That's how it works. We the people. Thank you. Thanks for making time to be here. That's awesome. Anybody else that we haven't heard from who has got something to offer?
Sure. My name's Kathleen Erickson.
Hi, Kathleen.
Hi.
So tell us about you. Do you live in the CBD? Do you work there? What's your?
Yeah, actually, I lived in downtown Tucson for 3 years. I recently moved out just to the exterior, to a neighboring neighborhood. I'm also the CEO with the Downtown Tucson Partnership. And so, of course, I work downtown, and we have a crew of 30 people that work downtown. But I just wanted to speak to some economic development points. You know, in addition to the sales tax and the property tax that come with the G-Plat and the CBD developments, there's a number of jobs in and around these projects that have increased dramatically. And some examples are Caterpillar, Hexagon Mining, AC Marriott, DoubleTree, Hilton are coming on soon. And the economic benefit to the region, the overall region, is over $2 billion. And as uncertain as things are right now with the coronavirus, you know, this incentive is more important than ever before in job creation and making sure that we have, you know, businesses that can continue to contribute to the overall development of the city. And that includes historic preservation, culture, the arts, green space. All of these tax generating items are a result of this economic development tool, and has really been the groundwork for what's happened in the downtown. The abuses of the G-Plat that have been cited by some individuals have not occurred in Tucson. This is the ones that are in reference that I'm aware of are Maricopa County, not in Tucson. And in fact, I have a table that I'd be happy to share with everyone that out of 25, I think there's 25 incentives in the last couple of years, 23 are local developers, many women and people of culture. So thank you.
That's great, Kathleen, thank you. All right, we've got about 2 more minutes. So we could open a bottle of wine and like literally keep doing this, because this is exactly what makes solutions reveal, right? So what happens next? So again, tomorrow you'll receive an email from the City of Tucson. There will be opportunity to express ideas, solutions, comments, questions without limitation. Like literally, it's not like 140 characters. After you've got more time to think about it, please share those ideas. And then within that same email will be the opportunity to say, yes, I'd like to stay connected through the journey. I encourage you all to stay connected. The one thing that will always cause failure is when we cut and run from one another. And the one thing that inevitably will create success is when we hang in there and find solutions, right? And I got to tell you that a community as courageous and bold as yours, led by the commitment of your mayor and council to truly be inclusive in this process. They're not trying to do shuck and jive. They're not trying to, sort of pull one over. They genuinely want to hear. And so when you provide them input, that's going to matter. I'm really excited about what your future is going to look like. I have absolutely no doubt it's going to be something quite extraordinary, because you are starting with something quite extraordinary, and then you're committing to stay in it together to figure out how to keep it quite extraordinary. So here's the job. One call to action. Tell your friends, tell your coworkers, tell your neighbors, tell everybody that that survey is the key. We want people to fill out that survey. It is on the Connect Tucson website. You can print off a PDF, English or Spanish. Are you waving, or Larry, you're leaving? I guess he's leaving, he was waving. So please share that with people, encourage folks to complete it. It'll be in the newspaper as well, available to all the ward offices. That's the key. So that's one very productive thing that you can do. And then again, keep comments, questions flowing, because they will be summarized and they'll be on that master Q&A document. So I don't know where you end up, but here's what I know is if I want to go fast, I go alone, right? And things as complicated as the future and what we aspire to be as a community aren't things you go alone and go fast. They take a lot, and you got to stay in it. And so the richness of this discussion, I think some really awesome ideas have surfaced, and some very interesting tensions have surfaced. And so let's acknowledge the tensions and let's stay in conversation until we work through them. Is it okay? I think it probably is okay to say, yes, we would like a business developer to be able to make some money. It's okay. And at the same time, we want to derive community benefits that meaningfully lift our community. That's okay. And there is a place where those two things are both true, right? And so thank you. I just feel like a really lucky electron that gets to float around the nucleus that is the heart and soul of your community, Tucson. So thanks for letting me be an electron. And you are 2 minutes overtime, and we don't actually pay overtime. So sorry we kept you 2 minutes longer. Thank you, thank you, thank you for caring enough to spend 90 minutes. And don't let go. You stay in the minivan. We're going through this journey together. You may take the rest of the day off.